Greetings, Mavericks and new viewers. Tonight, direct and live from the Maverick News Network World Studios. This is Maverick News with Rick Walker.
Did you see that baseball game last night? No, I didn't, because I didn't have cable, and it was so late. The game dragged on. We were here, but what I did do is I was following it while I was up late, as usual, researching content for an upcoming program. And I was monitoring the score and looking at posts online, but I couldn't find a live stream online last night. But man, it was still a nail biter. I can't imagine what it would have been like to actually watch the thing in real time. But I was able to get enough information to realize what was going on. 18 innings. That's one of the longest World Series games in history. Just a war on the field. Incredible. And I saw some of the highlights, of course, afterward online. And that call that cost the Jays might have cost them the game, might have cost them the series. I'll tell you that. We're going to monitor the score here tonight as the program unfolds so that hopefully you don't miss anything too important. The program here won't continue past the duration of the baseball game tonight, so you'll still be able to watch this and then devote the rest or most of your attention afterward to the game. And what a heartbreaker for the Blue Jays, what a heartbreaker for Canada, but what a great game by the Dodgers. And they've got some great players, both sides. We'll see how it goes tonight. My understanding, and I don't follow baseball during the regular season very much, but when the World Series comes along, I do. Like all fake baseball fans, I do pay attention, especially this year because the Jays are playing and it's a Canadian team. Well, such as Canadian baseball teams are with the players from all over the world. So we'll see what happens tonight, but my understanding is that any team that is in a position like the Dodgers are in, a game up heading into this stretch of the World Series, over 70% of all the teams in this position have gone on to win the series. So if you're a betting person, those are your odds at this point. But I wouldn't count the Jays out. That game was so close. This series has been so close, even though the first game appeared to be more of a Jays domination. It really has not been. These two teams are very evenly matched from what I gather. And it's going to be another nail biter tonight, I expect. So, and the whole series will be a nail biter right to the end. You never know what's going to happen. It ain't over till the fat lady sings. And we've got a lot of news to cover tonight as we've seen the U.S. blow more narco terrorists out of the water. We'll give you some updates on that. Also, mercenaries being flown in to Venezuela in response to some of this as Venezuela arms up, amps up, jacks up, gets ready for what some people think is an imminent invasion by U.S. forces on Venezuelan soil. We'll show you what's happening there. And a news conference today in Ottawa from an anti-euthanasia group opposed to the expansion of Canada's medical assistance and dying program for people with mental or psychological illnesses. We'll bring you that as well. And then, of course, all this stuff with Trump and the tariffs, the trade war, the rhetoric back and forth. And we'll just bring it all to you tonight in a very efficient form. I hope that will both inform and entertain. I'll be right back. Stay with me.
Greetings, brave mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
All right, let's start with some of this stuff here out of Venezuela. So the U.S. announcing today that it has killed 14 more people in 4 additional strikes against what they say are narco terrorist boats. Here, I'll show you the story making the rounds on mainstream media. U.S. kills 14 and strikes on 4 alleged drug boats in Pacific. This is BBC. Mexico's Navy says it is still searching for a lone survivor approximately 400 miles from the Pacific coastal city of Acapulco. It is the latest in a series of attacks on boats the U.S. says have been carrying drugs in both the Pacific and Caribbean. Latest strikes in the Eastern Pacific, which Secretary of War Pete Hegseth said happened yesterday at the direction of President Donald Trump, mark an escalation in what it has cast as a campaign to stop narcotics from entering the U.S. Some people are very concerned about all of this, but it continues. It's very clear this is not going to stop. Here's a diagram here. According to the DEA, the majority of cocaine heading to the U.S. goes through the Pacific, known as suspected drug seizure and movement events. So it shows here West Caribbean, Colombia, Peru, Bolivia, and then you've got Venezuela over here, and then it comes up over there, and the arrows show it a very sophisticated way. It's all coming from there, and it's all coming through Mexico or straight into the U.S. Who knows? Well, Hegseth says he knows. So I don't know, man. I don't know. That's the part. That's the problem, though. We haven't really seen much in the way of any real evidence produced, other than some videos. Of the boats being blown up. See if I get you the latest video here of these ones. So, well, here, before we get into that, let me just show you this. This is, as a result of all of this, we're seeing massive mobilization now of Venezuelan forces. And I wasn't sure what to make of some of this stuff, because there's this. Claims that 125,000 soldiers have been mobilized in Venezuela, military training beginning, and we're also seeing posts that suggest even civilians are being taught how to use weapons as they brace for what many in Venezuela believe is an imminent U.S. invasion.
The weight of uncertainty and the rumble of armored vehicles can be felt throughout the country. An estimated 125,000 members of Venezuela's military have mobilized. While we were there, the government was holding emergency drills and urging civilians to prepare for combat. It's all a bit of theater and a response to this. Since September, the U.S. military has blown up at least 10 vessels, killing more than 36 alleged drug smugglers, most of them off the coast of Venezuela. The weight of uncertainty and the rumble.
Now, I've been looking at this for the past few days as well. Reports that the Wagner Group, or Wagner Group, depending on how you want to pronounce it, this is a Russian mercenary group, essentially. Soldiers of fortune, private military, soldiers that are paid. They're not actually part of the Russian military, but as such, they can be hired. And that is apparently what is going on in Venezuela. I've been monitoring this. Wagner forces have been in Venezuela for a while, to varying levels. But it looks like they're bringing in more now. And if the U.S. invades, they'll be then going up against not just Venezuelan military, but also Russian mercenaries, which may not be entirely all Russian. Could be just other soldiers from who knows where, hired, but it's a Russian company. Here you can see these various stories confirming this. So Defense News, heavy Russian cargo plane lands in Caracas. A Russian transport aircraft of a type linked to the country's military and former Wagner mercenary group is landed in Caracas. Wagner arrives in Venezuela from Medium. Social media posts talking about it now. So it's expanding. With this kind of stuff, I'm always concerned. I don't like to jump the gun. I want to be factual. I want to make sure that there's lots of information to support what I bring you. I haven't really spoken about this yet until tonight, but I'm seeing more reports of it. It appears to be authentic. Wagner troops, this is back in August. Amid protests in Venezuela, Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky has raised concerns about the presence of Russian Wagner Group mercenaries. It looks like in Venezuela as well. Here, just go to this. This is an old article, keep in mind, from the Economic Times. It expressed concern about the presence of Russian mercenaries from the Wagner Group, adding that it was an example of Russia's shameless meddling in other countries' affairs. Protests erupted in the Venezuelan capital the day after President Nicolas Maduro declared victory in the election. The opposition denied Maduro's statement as fraudulent. This is one of the issues at the core of everything being used to justify what the U.S. is doing around Venezuela. These claims that Maduro stole the election. And then we're seeing, as I said, that Wagner forces have been in Venezuela for some time, and now they're bringing in reinforcements. And these reports here, this one's from 12 hours ago. And I've seen other new ones within the last 24 hours. So keep your eye on this, because this is an escalation, and those guys are lethal. They're professional soldiers of fortune. Anybody, have you ever seen the magazine Soldier of Fortune? Is it still out there? Probably. I remember seeing it when I was younger on newsstands all the time. There was a magazine. There's a video game too. I haven't seen that magazine in so long. Ceased print publication in 2016, but the title continues online as a daily web magazine now owned by Susan Katz-Keating, focusing on current global events, military news, and weapons. So still in existence, just not in print form, digital only. Let's go to the website right there. Of course, the U.S. has its own private military contractors as well. Soldier of Fortune. Not the kind of job that, I would go looking for. Strange business, war, but that's exactly what you're looking at here. War. So you want to be a war correspondent. Commentary by Susan Katz-Keating. The work has been called the most dangerous form of journalism. I might read that one. Soldier of Fortune was forged in the fires of Vietnam. Interesting headlines. Project Acoustic Kitty, the CIA's Cold War feline secret agent. Boy, there's probably some real raw truth in this. I had not paid much attention to this, and I only just came up with this title for the thumbnail in tonight's video off the top of my head just about an hour ago, and I just started thinking about this magazine. I'm going to start reading some of these articles to find out what the raw truth is, because these guys, it's like you're hiring a soldier, and I don't think there's probably not there is probably propaganda, but just of a different sort. But I think it's probably closer to unvarnished truth over there. I shouldn't be speaking like that because I don't know. I never subscribed to the magazine. I only remember seeing it. I was never a subscriber, but I'm going to read it. I'll give you a review in the nights ahead after I read some of the articles. You could go read some too, and maybe we could share notes, compare notes. But I was speaking, one of the reasons I highlighted this story tonight is because earlier in the day, I was speaking to a friend. He's, I won't name him. He's a Canadian citizen, but he is from Iran. And we were talking originally about other things, but then we got into a conversation about what's going on geopolitically. I said, boy, things are so unstable over in Iran right now and in the Middle East. And he acknowledged that. And his views were not as emotionally charged as those that I get from some people, even within our own community here. It was, I think, just a more realistic perspective that he brought to the conversation. He said, very disappointed. He does not like the government in place right now in Iran. Says they're brutal. If you speak out against the government, they will kill you. He says, though, that the people of Iran mostly would prefer a Western sort of lifestyle, because they remember how things were before when the Shah was in power. He says that the people are suffering in Iran, that the people are living, in economic stress. But he blames a lot of it on the United States because of sanctions, because the U.S. just carries so much weight, and they put so much up against Iran, opposing the regime there, maybe for legitimate reasons, but it's the people who are largely suffering. And I know that the United States uses that tactic. They have done it before. They continue to do it. They'll keep on doing it, I'm sure, where they apply pressure through sanctions to make the people suffer, so that they blame the government in power, so that eventually they will even rise up and oppose the sitting government, or at least undermine support for the sitting government. And then as this conversation with my friend continued, we spoke about what's going on in Venezuela. He shares concerns about the approach the U.S. is taking right now, blowing up these suspected narco terrorist boats off the coast of Venezuela. But his view is that the United States is really just creating a pretext. They're manufacturing an excuse to invade the country. I've seen a lot of analysts too, just in the last couple of weeks, coming more in line with this way of thinking, because, a lot of people are saying now Trump really all he wants, what he mostly wants, is he wants Maduro out. He wants to put a pro-American government in, and he wants the oil. But of course, he can't justify an invasion on the basis of going in to take the oil. And so after strategizing with his team, and especially Marco Rubio, they've come up with this pretext of a huge drug crisis, which there is, but they're using that as justification for a full-scale invasion, which normally drug trafficking from that part of the world to the United States would be handled through law enforcement mechanisms, not military means, which is what we see going on here. And then there was a survivor from these attacks today, and the United States kind of left that to, I believe it was Mexico and Venezuela to go in. And I think Mexico ultimately was left with the task of dealing with the survivors from today's attack. And the two other survivors that they picked out of the water after blowing up that sort of mini sub, they were then deported back to their home countries, which was not Venezuela. It was Ecuador and Colombia, which was also telling to me, because they're supposed to be blowing up Venezuelan narco terrorists, but these guys were from two different countries, although a lot of the cartels are, sending narcotics from one of these countries to another, and they have a chain of distribution. Nevertheless, they're sending them back. And you would normally think that if they pick somebody out of the water and they're supposed to be a suspected narco terrorist, that they would bring them to the United States to stand trial. But they didn't. That tells me a lot too. They don't want that stuff in an American court. They don't want it dealt with. They don't want the evidence coming out. They just want to ship them back to their own country with, I don't know, an assurance of some kind that they'll face some sort of justice back there, but probably not. Maybe, who knows? I don't think they really care that much about that end of it. They just want to blow those boats up, get the video, and then they get their amplified narrative as they escalate toward whatever action it is they actually intend to take in that region. And they have this massive military buildup. Talk about overkill. There's so much firepower in there that they could take over the whole region with very little, I think, pushback, except now you've got these mercenaries moving in. That will complicate things a little bit. And the thing is, it's like, I think you're going to, if this happens, I fear that this will get way out of control real quick. And it's going to be a lot messier and a lot bloodier than I think Donald Trump realizes. This president of peace. And then it doesn't feel right to me at all. Very, very scary. None of the, war of any kind, they always start with promises that it's going to end quickly. It's going to be over with. We have overwhelming force. There's, this will be over in a matter of days. The only thing with Trump is what he does tend to do is he tends to pick on opponents who are much weaker, bombs them, and then just stops. What will happen in Venezuela, though? He's actually talking about this time maybe sending troops and boots on the ground. I don't really understand the people who continue to just blindly support what he does, very much opposed to being involved in any foreign wars, very much opposed to being involved in Ukraine or the Middle East, don't want any boots on the ground in any of those locations. And yet, what are we talking about here? We're talking about the U.S. invading on land. He's talking about it. They're normalizing it or getting people conditioned to the idea that this is likely to happen. And then they'll put boots on the ground. And people, I think, are sort of like okay with it because in their minds, this is going to be a cakewalk, very little opposition. How can these Venezuelan forces do anything? They look desperate. But I think that there's darkness on the other side of this. If they send U.S. forces into Venezuela, they'll be in for a surprise and more resistance than they're bargaining for, because it won't just be blatant out front, up and right in front. They'll be hiding. It'll be like street combat. It'll be soldiers of fortune in homes, in civilian cars. It'll be hiding behind trees, hiding in blinds where they can't be seen. They'll use guerrilla warfare tactics. We've seen this in history. Look at what happened to Russia when they went into Afghanistan. They got their butts kicked. Look at all these conflicts, and they drag on for years. It's supposed to go in, clean things up in a matter of weeks, and 20 years later. And one act of violence begets another, begets another, begets another. And you know who ends up suffering the most? Just the ordinary civilian people, just people like you and I, ordinary people just trying to live their lives. I'm really alarmed. Then my friend from Iran, recognizes all of this, still has, relatives over in Iran, sends as much as he can home to help his relatives. But living here, now he's even concerned about the way Trump is talking about Canada, this 51st state rhetoric, the trade war. He sees big red warning flags all over the place. And so do I. I've been sounding the alarm for, I don't know how long now. How long has it been since Tucker Carlson came to Canada, phoned Justin Trudeau to tell him that he was coming to Canada to liberate the country? And when he did that, what did I say? He's not joking. Marco Rubio, several times, and has come out when asked if Trump is serious, and even just this past week, came out again on the Sunday talk show circuit and said, well, President Trump has stated many times that he thinks Canada would be better off as the 51st state. And then you've got all this tariff talk, the trade war. It's not just about tariffs. We'll get into that stuff a little bit here tonight as well. But man, I'm telling you, these are unprecedented times. Everything going on, totally unnecessary. And I am disheartened tonight, because today watching other live streamers and prominent news organizations, alternative media people on the Canadian side, some of whom have moved to the United States already. They're clearly not in the Canada camp. They're in the pro-Trump MAGA camp. They are in the anti-Canada camp. They are regurgitating pro-America, anti-Canadian rhetoric. They're carrying the American 51st state rhetoric forward, if not blatantly, then just in a watered-down version of it to make it more palatable. The masks are coming off. If you pay attention to it every day, it becomes painfully obvious. People worried about censorship and Bill C-8, worried about foreign interference from China, worried about corruption, talking about our politicians corrupt. I'll tell you, there are a lot of other people corrupt too, politically corrupt, but who might not be actual politicians. But in order to engage in that kind of political corruption, you don't need to be a politician. You can be engaged in it and not be an elected official. It's terrible. It's unpatriotic, even though some of these people call themselves patriots. Yeah, patriot. Patriotic to which flag? It's becoming painfully obvious. My guess is they're probably cheering for the Dodgers tonight, even though they hold Canadian citizenship and no doubt get their free health care. Enough said for this evening on that. I'm going to check the score as we take a break. I'll come back on the other side and we'll start digging into some of tonight's other top news stories because there's a lot to share.
Maverick News isn't just a news outlet, it's a community of truth seekers. Your donation at freedomreporters.com fuels our mission to report the stories that mainstream media won't touch. Thank you, Maverick family.
The information war is raging. Truth without integrity is worth nothing. Maverick News. Because those who have power and those who seek it must be held accountable.
The world is watching.
Join our family of truth seekers. Donate today and add your voice to the chorus of Maverick Knights. Donate at maverickdonations.com. Truth. Integrity. It's the Maverick way. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Maverick News. The world is watching.
Trump, of course, making headlines again today, gave this speech talking about Toyota. But there's another thing. This is going to circle around and come back to geopolitics and war. I'm going to run a little bit of this speech from today because he, of course, was what's been posted today as he engaged in negotiations with Japan on trade and said this about Toyota investing in the U.S.
It's an investment. We're having investments in our country greater than ever before, greater than any country has ever had, actually. We'll talk about that. And I also want to thank the people from Carrier here someplace. Where's Carrier? They were here. Just thank you. Thank you very much. They made a big contribution also to the White House fund. We're redoing lots of things in the White House. We're bringing it up to the way it should be. And you probably heard, I don't know if anybody heard about, we're building a little ballroom over there. People are loving it. Now they're loving it. It took them a little while to understand what was going on, but now we actually got an editorial from the Washington Post and from the New York Times saying, you got to build that ballroom. I couldn't believe it when that happened. Look, they're back there right now. They can't believe I'm saying good things about them. But it's been great. But I want to thank Carrier. They make great air conditioning, heating, and things, and they were very generous. It's really fantastic what they did. And with the help of many of you here tonight, almost all of you, the only people that haven't done anything snuck into the room, because I think you're all here because of what you've done. And so if there's anybody that hasn't done anything, please raise your hand and we'll throw you the hell out of here, okay? But Japan is already America's sixth largest trading partner, and I think as of today, that's gone up probably 2 notches, and the number one source of foreign direct investment. And so they're very happy because, as goes our market, so many countries, they invest in the United States, but we've never had anything quite like what's happening. And I think it's going to get better. I can say it now. So we have over $17 trillion of investment in 8 months. And I think by the time we go to the 12-month period, we'll have over 20 or $21 trillion invested or to be invested. Very importantly, I mean, the money's coming in, and a lot of it's commitments that are incredible. Tim Cook is doing, I think, like $600 or $650 billion, right? Think of it. You've done more than the entire group here. We raised $518 billion, and there's one man sitting here at $650. But good, and everything's, they're treating you great, right? We give them fast permits. We give everybody fast permits. No more waiting 20 years before you get rejected. You know, that used to have a process. I know a couple of people, they started a process when they were young men. Now they're old men and they got rejected. Can you imagine? They devoted their whole life to getting a couple of permits. One of the things I did that's really helping AI because of the massive amount of electricity that they need is I said, you build your own power plant if you'd like.
Okay. And with that, they go to an AI commercial, of course, because with AI, they're monitoring everything we do. And as soon as he says AI pops up as an ad. In fact, you know how crazy it is? You see this thing right here? Windsock, right? For a microphone. This thing fell off the microphone just before we came on with the broadcast tonight. And I was talking about it to myself. Oh, look. My microphone windsock fell off, I said to myself. I said, self, where did my windsock go for my microphone? And I'm speaking into this microphone. Guess what comes up as an ad as soon as I went online? An ad for a microphone. Slate microphones, the last microphone you'll ever need. Tell me that they are not listening all the time. Monitoring on your phone, monitoring here. All I did was mention the word microphone. I'm also getting all kinds of ads right now for roofing products because I need to put a roof on my shed before the snow comes. So I went to look at the price of shingles and roofing products. Now I'm just being overwhelmed with ads about that. AI. Trump saying, as well, that Toyota making a massive investment in the United States. He's saying, go buy a Toyota now. And I don't know. I'm still skeptical of these numbers he's throwing around, talking about how much investment is actually coming into the country, because I think some of these deals that he's making are sort of deals in principle or deals of intent, and we'll see if it actually plays out over time. A lot of these things, such big projects, they take many years to put together and actually come to fruition and build factories and make these kinds of huge shifts in supply chains and so on. It's very disruptive. Well, also today at that speech, there was a bit of a faux pas. He's coming under fire because as he was dealing with this whole thing with Japan, he referred to a little conflict with Japan. You may have heard about it, he said. And of course, he's talking about the use of nuclear weapons in World War II on 2 occasions, Hiroshima, Nagasaki. And this is the clip, I guess, that's getting him into some hot water, but a lot of people are afraid of him, so not getting as much attention as it might have before.
Japan has been with us all the way, and it's amazing that we had a little conflict with Japan. You may have heard about it, and that after such a horrible thing, yet the two nations are the closest friends and partners that you can be, and based on a shared commitment to freedom, democracy, security, prosperity, civilization, and just basic human achievement. It's amazing, actually.
A little conflict. A little conflict. I don't know. Flippant. Here's a post from Russia News in response to that. Here, I'll show you on Twitter. Not sitting well with some people. Honestly, not even, it doesn't sit well with me either, the way he just casually talks about some of these things. Trump from Japan describes the bombing of Hiroshima and Nagasaki as a small conflict. He goes on this post saying, "It's funny that we had a small conflict with Japan. Maybe you've heard of it. But after this horrific event, our two countries remain the closest friends and partners imaginable." And they post this. Obviously from a movie. Does anybody know what movie this is? Going to check the chat. If you know what movie that is, let me know in the chat. Yeah. I know some people who do business in Japan. I've never been to Japan. When you go to Japan and you speak to people there, they still remember. And it doesn't sit well with them. And even though I think Japan has become sort of an extension of the United States in many respects because of what happened in World War II, whether they liked it or not, and even though the United States provided the resources to assist in rebuilding Japan after World War II, because it became an extension of the United States in many respects, even though all of that happened, people there still remember and still live with the horrific aftershocks that continue to resonate through time up to present day. And it's a very sensitive issue. So if you go to Japan, as some of my friends do who do business over there, they'll tell you that when they go out after work and they sit and they talk, or if they just speak casually as friends, this is a subject that sometimes comes up. And they'll say, what do you think of the way the United States bombed us? What's your view on the way World War II was handled? Was it just, and they'll get into the discussion. And it doesn't go well. The United States has an image problem, a reputation problem, and Trump is not helping. I have been, I've sat in this chair I've defended him in the past. I've defended the United States because I love the United States. But I've come to learn over time that there are really two Americas. There's maybe even more Americas than that. There are many sides to an issue. Two things can be true at the same time, even if the two things seem to conflict. There's a good America, there's the shining city on a hill, and there's also the evil, dark side of America. Every president has choices to make. Every politician, every person, every citizen of the United States, every citizen in the Western world, the free world, we all make decisions, choices. What do we support? What do we believe in? What kind of future do we want? Will we embrace the dark side of the past or the bright side of the past to bring that vision, one vision or the other, forward into time? I know what I want. I know what I want to be. But I see so much descent into darkness. I see so much bitterness. He's so cavalier. He's so arrogant. He's changed. Or maybe he hasn't. Maybe he's just revealing his true nature now. Fooled me for a long time. I was blinded. I knew there were issues. I knew he wasn't perfect, but I was buying into the whole, Donald Trump's a victim thing. Oh, look, he's just under attack again by his political enemies. Oh, my God. No one's has had to put up with more than Donald Trump. No, it's again, painfully obvious what he's doing. And I guess maybe I've just become more aware of it because I'm selfish. Because I see him attacking my country now. That, I guess, really is one of the things that really brought it to a head for me. It was like, what the heck are you doing? Why? This makes no sense. It's just pure greed. And a lack of compassion, doesn't care about people, doesn't believe in freedom at all. Quite the opposite. The actual absolute opposite. He's an enemy of freedom. This guy. And I showed you that picture last night. Here, I'm going to run it again right now. I'll find it for you. The picture of Donald Trump in the White House, sitting alone. With side lighting. Sort of a little spotlight on him. And this is what I put this together actually last night from last night's broadcast. This was a photo that he posted on Truth Social. This guy. So, it's all about the money. It's all about how rich you can be. It's a zero-sum game. He's a predator. It's just going around beating up people he should be engaging in mutually beneficial transactions with. But he's just trying to accumulate as much wealth as he possibly can, not just for himself, but for America, to make America. He thinks making America great is to try to just tax the crap out of other countries or whatever it is to just get as much revenue into the government coffers as possible and then decorate the White House with gold, put garish, gaudy, obscene amounts of gold all over everything. And then without permission, he's just going to knock down the east end of the White House. And people are like, what is going on over there? Why is he demolishing the east? What? He's knocking down the White House. He didn't talk to anybody about that, and he's just doing whatever he wants. He's going to build a big, beautiful ballroom, blah, 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 blah. I haven't really talked about it much here. I thought, well, what's going on? Come on. No, he's really doing that. He just called in construction crews, demolishes the place. He's got this plan, never talked to anybody else about it. He's just doing what he wants. I guess it's his house for the moment, so I guess he gets to redecorate and renovate any way he wants. So he just, blam, to hell with tradition, to hell with the history, to hell with the heritage. I mean, in our country, if there are heritage homes in the community here, if you try to knock down one of those, you've got permits coming out your wazoo and people protesting out in front. Just 3 blocks over, there's a historic street and giant trees growing there. They wanted to expand the road to make a bike lane. And they were going to chop down all these old trees. And the whole community came out. Can't chop down our historic trees. That's the way we are here. You know, we appreciate and want to conserve our past. You know, don't kill the trees. There was more pushback on the trees here than you've had. Well, there's been pushback on what Trump is doing with the White House, but my God, it's too late. He just demolished it. It's gone. Yeah, no permits necessary. No, don't talk to him. Oh my God. And then the gold. He's just sitting around surrounded by his gold. And as I said last night, people are afraid of this guy now. He is using coercion, intimidation to keep his political enemies in check. He purged all of his political opponents and the people who support him around him. You don't dare say anything against him. I look at Marco Rubio. He just stands behind Trump, keeps his mouth shut till he's told to speak. Marco, come on up here and say something. Otherwise, he just sits there. You can look in his eye. He just shifts his eyes around. He knows he shouldn't say anything that he's not supposed to say. He's right in alignment. He keeps the narrative going, doesn't speak for himself at all. You don't dare. Otherwise, off with their heads. But there he sat. He posts this image last night because he's pulled all these old portraits of dead presidents out of storage. He has them all in the Oval Office now, all hanging on the walls. And around it, you've got all this gold everywhere. But he's sitting there, and what I got from it last night, as I said, it's just, he's alone. So I put this together. I'll share it with you here. It's just what I said last night, just produced a little bit. And there Trump sits quietly, dimly lit, alone. The strong man. Alone. Funny thing is, you know, when you use fear to keep people in check, when your power, your influence is derived through fear, it's really hard to know who your friends are and who your enemies are. There was a president who talked about fear. John F. Kennedy. I remember his words too. There's nothing to fear but fear itself. Yeah. We're going to be okay. Yeah, we are going to be okay because that kind of thing doesn't last. And Trump has more days behind him than he has ahead of him. Judgment Day is coming for him. It's not for me to judge his fate. But when that day comes, even as he approaches it, I think he'll find that he's alone.
Greetings, brave mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Okay. All right. I've been accumulating some content over the past week. A little piece here, a little piece there. Stuff keeps coming. I was going to maybe talk about it tonight, but I think I'll save it for another evening because I think there's enough material here talking about advertising, the impact of artificial intelligence, social media, transhumanism, all of these things. They're all converging, coming together. And I think we can do a whole program on it. Everything is accelerating at an incredible pace. So I won't share this material with you tonight, but it's also about culture, religion, all of this stuff, the culture war online and how it's affecting us, what our future is going to be. It's even a reflection on what truth has become or what truth is, what reality is. And it's being illustrated right in front of us through some of the newest advertisements that are out there right now. The medium is the message. The content is reflective of the medium. And it's amazing to me at how quickly everything is shifting and changing and how our minds are being manipulated, controlled. And I think it'll be a worthwhile exercise because I've been looking at some automotive commercials, fast food stuff, stuff from ad agencies, articles, combined with, some academics who have been talking about these issues and AI experts. All this material just within the last week, all strangely converging to really provide a clearer perspective on all of it. So just a little teaser for some stuff to come, maybe in the next few nights ahead. But of course, we've got to prepare for that PPC, People's Party of Canada gala that is coming up November 1st. So I'm getting some production stuff ready for that in the background too. That's a little bit of work, and they've got a whole team working on that. I'm just trying to follow along and get ready to provide the official broadcast here from Maverick News that night. So make sure you tune in for that. And I was tuning in a little bit during question period today. Didn't get to watch a lot of it, but we're just going to bring the beginning of it here to you. Not a lot of it today, just a little bit, but front and center, right off the top, kitchen table issue, the economy.
Oral questions. The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
After 10 years of deficit budgets that are inflationary, they've jacked the price of groceries, and Canadians are hungry, literally hungry, according to the report of Food Banks Canada, a report called Hunger Record or Final Record 2025. The Liberals have made lineups longer and longer at food banks, and people with two jobs or two incomes still can't afford enough food. Will the Liberals finally bring in a budget to make life and groceries affordable? The Honourable Government House Leader.
Oui, nous allons.
Yes, we're going to table a budget to make life affordable and food affordable, and I hope the Leader of the Opposition will support it, Mr. Speaker.
Opposition.
We're not going to support a budget that balloons grocery prices like the last 9 inflationary Liberal budgets. According to Food Banks Canada, there are 100% more people using food banks. And one of them is Jacqueline Stone, a mother in Manitoba, who has 2 jobs but still can't afford food. She works at the grocery store, Mr. Speaker, but she can't afford groceries. What cruel irony. Will the government finally table a budget that's affordable? The Honourable Government House Leader. Well, the opposition leader is promising that woman a Christmas election.
Oops. Hang on, we lost our feed. Let me bring it back. Un momento, por favor. Here we go. Steve McKinnon, here he comes. We're back.
Opposition leader, 6 months after an election, is going to vote in favor of another one. I'm not sure everyone behind him agrees with that, but Mr. Speaker, the government will table a budget next week, and the opposition leader should support it, just like Food Banks Canada, who have supported all of our initiatives to make life more affordable, and the Conservatives voted against them.
After 9 Liberal tax and spend inflationary and costly deficits, Canadians are hungry. Hungry for an affordable budget. Hungry, according to a report by Food Banks Canada called the Hunger Count, which shows that there's been a 100% increase in the number of people relying on food banks since Liberals brought in numerous taxes on food. Will the Prime Minister finally, for the first time, introduce an affordable budget for affordable food and affordable living?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
Mr. Speaker, in fact, someone recently said that there's early signs of progress, including easing housing pressures and new social supports that are offering progress. In fact, this person went on to say that ambitious poverty reduction strategies like affordable housing pilots and the Canadian Dental Care Plan and the National School Food Program are showing early promise. Guess who said that, Mr. Speaker? The CEO of Food Banks Canada.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
If any of that were true, there would not be a 100% increase in the number of people relying on food banks. The numbers speak for themselves, Mr. Speaker, and that's after a decade of Liberal inflationary taxes and deficits that have driven 2.2 million people to the food bank. One of them is Jacqueline Stone. She works 2 jobs. She works at a grocery store, Mr. Speaker. She cannot afford to shop at the grocery store where she works. In her name and in the name of 2.2 million people lined up at food banks, will we finally get an affordable budget for affordable food and affordable living?
The Honourable Minister of Jobs and Families.
So I just heard the Leader of the Opposition say that the CEO of the Food Bank, Canada Food Bank, actually doesn't know what she's talking about when she wrote the report that they're quoting from. It's really hard to follow, isn't it, Mr. Speaker? But I will say this. It's clear that the member opposite is driving for a Christmas election, and I really hope that's not true, because Canadians are counting on us to pass this budget, to make the school food program permanent, to increase the benefits that Canadians are working on for so hard for, including the announcement yesterday for service support workers.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
If they want their budget passed, they have to make it an affordable budget so that there's affordable food and affordable quality of life for the Canadian people, including people like Jacqueline Stone. As I said, she works at a grocery store and can't afford groceries. We already know about carpenters who build homes but can't afford homes after 10 years of Liberals. This is the story she tells. She says, you find yourself going through the grocery store, grabbing what you need, and when you get to ready to check out, you pretty much have to do an audit of your cart to see if you can afford everything. Sometimes you have to put things back. It's embarrassing and disheartening. People like her have been working too hard for too long. Will they get an affordable budget?
The Honourable Secretary of State for Children and Youth.
You're here.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Conservatives cannot have it both ways. They say Canadians are facing challenges, and yet they dismiss the ways of helping them get through these challenges. The same Food Banks Canada report they cite mentions the Canada Disability Benefit, the Canadian Dental Care Plan, the National School Food Program, the National Housing Strategy as steps taken to address the underlying conditions that contribute to poverty. When it comes time to step up, what did the Conservatives opposite do? They voted against these supports. They will have another opportunity to change their tune and support that budget.
All right, enough. Because we're going to hear a lot more of this kind of rhetoric in the days ahead as we get closer and closer to the Liberal government tabling that budget. About to talk about a possible election. I kind of doubt it. Why? Because it's the Liberals who are talking about it tonight or today, not the Conservatives. Even though the Conservatives are pushing and you're getting these theatrics in the House, it's the Liberals who keep saying that the Conservatives want the election because the Liberals know the public doesn't really have the stomach or the appetite, maybe more is the better word, an appetite for another election right now. So it would be a miscalculation, I think, if the Conservatives push and force an election. If that budget doesn't pass, that's what could happen. It could trigger an election because it would become a vote of confidence. And if confidence is lost in the government, then we go back to the polls. And we just went through it all. Do you really want to go to the polls over Christmas? You want to have an election, a Christmas election, or around that time? I doubt Canadians really want it. And I think if the Conservatives were to force it, the Liberals would exploit it again. We'd probably just end up right back where we are right now with a bunch of time lost when we really can't afford it as a country. In the face of these escalating threats from the United States. And as we see these threats escalating, I'm seeing people in the Trump camp, some of them who have been around, the political scene for decades, sort of changing their tune, shifting their position a little bit, softening up their rhetoric, or even just doing a complete 180. Case in point, Mark Levin. I saw a post from him today. I'm going to show you on Fox. He has a well-documented track record as a strong advocate for free market principles, including free trade. It's a stance that aligns with the Reagan-era emphasis on reducing trade barriers, promoting economic growth, and the word that Levin uses all the time, liberty. But Levin's views have evolved recently, especially in response to perceived unfair trade practices by countries like China and Canada. He now supports targeted tariffs as tools for fair trade reciprocity while criticizing broad protectionism. So it's nuanced, but Levin served in multiple roles during Ronald Reagan's administration. He was chief of staff to Attorney General Ed Meese, Deputy Assistant Secretary of Elementary and Secondary Education. He was Deputy Solicitor at the Department of Interior. Now, Reagan was a vocal proponent of free trade, often, warning about protectionism as a path to economic stagnation. And as a Reagan loyalist, Levin's early career reflected this philosophy, and he made statements back then very much in alignment with Reagan free trade views. But with the emergence of Donald Trump, he has shifted his views. He has, or shifted his statements anyway. I don't know if he's actually shifting the way he really thinks about things. Now, he still claims to be a free market guy, but when you go back in time and you look at what he has said, I have some quotes that I've pulled up here from the past 2018, March 2018. Mark Levin says, quote, "Tariffs are un-American. Tariffs on steel and aluminum increase prices on the American people. How is it that the market works in every field except for about 6, where we are told we have to have a fair system? Tariffs are something that Chuck Schumer and Bernie Sanders support." So I'm telling you, too, Trump is not a Reagan. He's no Ronald Reagan. He is not really a Republican. He's certainly not a conservative. He's a socialist. He's just a different kind of socialist than Bernie Sanders. March 13th, 2018, Mark Levin, quote, "Taxing steel and aluminum is not the way to stick it to China." Criticizing broad tariffs at the time, hitting allies like Canada and the EU and China. June 1st, 2018, "Tariffs on allies equal lost American jobs. Higher prices on all related goods for all Americans. Tariffs and taxes that drive up prices." That's June 1st, 2018, Mark Levin. July 25th, 2018. He's praising Trump's push for, quote, "zero tariffs and zero subsidies." Even Trump has shifted his views, or at least some of his rhetoric on this stuff. This is not Trump 1.0. This Trump 2.0, it's different. Much more radicalized on the economic side and other sides. But he's shifted. Levin has shifted, and I'm going to show you. He's he's dancing around the language a little bit in the post that I saw today. But no, he's just carrying water for Donald Trump in the wake of this big ad campaign from Doug Ford, the Ontario government, using Reagan's own words, showing that Reagan was a free trader who was very much opposed to the use of tariffs, but only used them in a very targeted way. And I'm going to give you an even more nuanced perspective as I run this from Mark Levin tonight. And Mark Levin, I have honestly, he's a guy that I've followed myself a lot. I used to listen to him on the radio when I spent more time driving. I used to listen to him at night. And a lot of things I like about Mark Levin. Mostly I've always liked Mark Levin because of his conservative economic views. Free trade, free markets. That's what I've always liked about Levin. But his rhetoric is shifting. It's changed because of Trump. And I think he's just trying to save Trump's butt, basically.
Offline, despite what some of these so-called experts say, this case will be in front of the Supreme Court in a matter of weeks.
In front of the Supreme Court.
And
whether
I don't know the outcome, nobody does, but I want to get into this. As Thomson Reuters pointed out, in the early years of the American Republic, tariffs were the country's primary source of revenue. But the tariff of 1789, one of the first laws passed by the new federal government, was as much about protection as it was about raising money. The tariff imposed duties on a wide range of imported goods and helped to pay down the young nation's war debt. So right from the beginning, tariffs were critical for so many reasons. And we've had tariffs from then until today. Different types of tariffs, different extent of tariffs. We have promoted free market economics. We believe in free market economics.
Tariffs are not free market.
But tariffs have, in fact, played a significant role throughout our country, Republican, Democrat, the founders, President Trump. Alexander Hamilton, the first Secretary of the Treasury, was a vocal proponent of using tariffs to protect and nurture American industries. In fact, he believed that without such protections, the U.S. would remain dependent on British and European goods and would not develop its own manufacturing base. Today, the President of the United States has been very concerned about the hollowing out of our industries and our manufacturing base. He sees what China's up to. China's no friend. He sees what other countries are up to, and he's trying to give a rebirth to the industrial might of the United States, build on what's here, so much of which has been exported to other countries. In the 1800s, tariffs were a key part of the process of industrialization in the United States. The post-war Civil War years saw a surge in industrial growth, particularly in the steel industry. A lot of us call this the Second Great Industrial Revolution, which really was the First Great Industrial Revolution, 1870 to 1913.
That's the point. It was the Industrial Revolution that was fueling the growth, not the tariffs. Tariffs slowed things down.
During that period, a lot was going on, including the imposition of tariffs to give the country time to grow and to develop its own industries. Tariffs protected the American steel industry from cheaper European steel, allowing it to grow and prosper. And this protection was key in building a domestic steel industry that could compete with and eventually surpass European powers. The expansion of railroads, which were heavily supported by tariffs, was another transformative force in the American economy. The construction of railroads required vast amounts of steel, which the protected American steel industry could supply. This symbiotic relationship between tariffs, the steel industry, and the railroad expansion not only changed the physical geography of the country, but also facilitated the movement of goods and people. Well, it massively changed the country, expanded our boundaries,
those tariffs great?
expanded our industrial base, and from steel and railroads grew other industries.
This is Mark Levin 2.0, not Mark Levin 1.0.
From there, you know. The McKinley Tariff. That is the McKinley Tariff Act of 1890, named after its sponsor and future President William McKinley, raised tariffs on many imported goods to their highest levels up to that point. The average tariff rate on dutiable items increased from about 38% to 49%. The McKinley Tariff Act also included reciprocity provisions that allowed the government to negotiate trade agreements with other countries. These provisions were designed to reduce tariffs on certain goods in exchange for similar reductions by other nations, promoting more balanced trade relations. Now, even today, other nations have tariffs, and they have big tariffs. You got to wonder why. If they're not useful, if they're regressive, then why do they do it? We've had a lot of tariffs. As a matter of fact, I want you to look at this graph as I discuss this and as we scroll through it. How many tariff acts and trade acts have we had? 1789, 1790, 1791, 1792, different tariff acts. 1816, 1824, 1828, 1832, 1833, 1842, 1846, 1857, 1861, 1872. Tariffs. 1875, 1883, 1890, the McKinley Tariff. 1894, 1897, 1909, 1913. 1921, 1922, 1930, 1934. Why am I reading them when you can see them on the screen? Just to show you, to emphasize.
Smoot-Hawley Tariff Act did incredible damage.
1947, 1962, 1974,
Reagan even talks about how much damage those tariffs in the Depression,
2002,
that's what motivated him to come out against
2025. Look,
94 World
tariffs. You
WTO.
Tariffs. I'm going through the history
was
of
not
this
a
country,
pro-tariff
the
organization.
greatest economy on the face of the earth, the biggest superpower on the face of the earth. I'm explaining it. Again, I would argue that tariffs aren't what built this country.
Trump.
Capitalism is what built this country. But tariffs were used by presidents of every party in every period of American history to try and give a breather to allow our industries to develop, because other countries, in many respects, were taking advantage of our country, as Donald Trump talks about all the time. Let's talk a little bit about the law and the Constitution. In dozens of statutes, Congress has authorized the president, as you heard, to adjust tariff rates in response to specific trade-related concerns related to U.S. foreign policy and national security interests, or that required administrative finding by a U.S. agency. For example, Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 empowers the president to adjust tariffs on imports that threaten to impair U.S. national security. Section 5B of the Trading with the Enemy Act and Section 203 of the International...
Yeah, there's some truth there. Okay. I'm not going to keep running the whole thing. Look, he's changed his tune because Trump needs support as they prepare to go to the Supreme Court. Trump's nose is all out of joint because Ontario ran that ad. It was highly effective. It was 100% accurate, using Reagan's words. It's the Trump loyalist at the Reagan Library that came out and really lied in order to just do the bidding of the Orange Man in the White House. Trump is really upset because he's about to go to court, and the Supreme Court is going to rule on whether his tariffs are constitutional or not. And if they rule against him, his signature economic policy, tariffs, upon which everything is based, will go right out the window potentially. And then he's got a big problem. Not only will his entire economic plan have to be rejigged, he'll have to refund a lot of these billions of dollars that he has taxed away from American companies that have been importing goods since the imposition of these tariffs. So it would just create a gigantic mess. Not that it's not already a mess, but Levin is carrying Trump's water. When he says, too, that other countries, the tariffs are used because some countries are taking advantage of the United States, it is not true. Well, sometimes it's true. If you have a country like, say, Japan or China that is subsidizing a sector heavily, like electric vehicles right now, so that they can produce the vehicles even below cost, and then they dump a product into your market below the cost of production in order to put your industry out of business. That's an unfair trade practice. That's taking advantage of the United States, or sometimes Canada, or just a trading partner. But what Trump is, and so that can justify the use of a tariff in a limited way to combat an unfair trade practice and dumping a product. The Chinese also have been accused of dumping steel into the U.S. and even Canadian markets and other markets around the world, heavily subsidizing an industry. The strategy is you produce even below cost and use government subsidies, which you have because you have massive amounts of money and the ability to generate massive amounts of money to prop up a selected industry for an extended period of time to then go against a privately run company that maybe doesn't have any government supports, to put them out of business, to drive an entire economic sector out of existence within a country, an auto sector, or the steel industry, or the aluminum industry, or pick an industry. And China will sometimes do that to drive a competitor into the ground. And then once the competitor is gone, they can jack up their prices. You see that kind of predatory practice even within retail environments where you have, the big box stores will move into a community, put all of the independent retailers out of business. And then once they're all out of business, the major chains put their prices up later. That's predatory economic behavior. But what Trump is doing is he's not using tariffs in a targeted manner like that. He's just applying tariffs across the board on everything. I remember having a conversation with a couple of people about Trump and tariffs, and I was actually in the beginning defending Trump's use of tariffs, or said that he was going to be using tariffs, because I never believed that he would do what he's doing now. I thought he would use tariffs in a targeted way, as they've been used in the past, to target specific industries and specific countries that are engaging in unfair trade practices in order to insulate and protect vulnerable U.S. industries that were being treated unfairly from foreign competition. But that's not what he's doing. He's just using it as a sledgehammer to hit everybody and their brother, every country, every ally, including Canada, including Europe. He's just gone to he's declared economic war on the world. It doesn't make any sense. As a result, he's turning the whole world upside down. He's driving productivity down, investment down. There's so much uncertainty. People are afraid to invest. People are pulling back. They're not spending money. You're seeing all kinds of reports about inflation, the economic projections for consumer spending over Christmas are down this year. Most retailers expecting consumers will spend a lot less. It's because of uncertainty in the marketplace. You're seeing higher unemployment rates, which he then denies. He makes up numbers, fires people who put out negative economic reports, even though those are a reflection of truth. And he demands that numbers be reimagined because it's an imaginary number that he puts out in order to support this idea that the economy is doing great. And then he makes up other numbers. It's 17 trillion, then it's 23 trillion, 22 trillion in investment that he's bringing into the country. A lot of this is being done not because the United States is being ripped off by other countries. It's being done because the U.S. industries that he's trying to shore up or repatriate are industries that the United States is just not competitive in. He's protecting non-competitive businesses. Not from dumping, but from fair competition. Tariffs can be used for that too, and that's what he's doing. So he's rewarding bad behavior that facilitates or amplifies more negative economic activity, that shrinks the economy, that makes things more expensive, and it rewards businesses that do things in an inefficient manner. You saw it even during the 1970s with companies like Chrysler bailed out in the 70s with bailout money from both Canada and the United States. As a result, they stayed in business. Tariffs put in place, that allowed actually the U.S. auto companies to raise their prices because it made foreign imports more expensive. So the domestic producers actually put their prices up as well because the competing products were more expensive. So it made both more expensive. It didn't just make the American-built cars more competitive. And because they had profit margin back, they responded to the price signals. And, oh, my goodness, look at this. We're selling more of these cars. We better produce more of these cars that guzzle gas and rust out faster than you can pay them off. And that was the truth back in the mid to late 1970s, especially with a lot of those Chrysler products. I know because my parents had one. And it rusted out in like 3 years. Had rust all over the damn thing. Brand new car. Crappy metal, not properly treated, poorly painted. I can go on about the problems. The doors froze up in the winter. You couldn't open it up. My mom used to have she literally had to carry a blowtorch with her because in the winter she'd come out from, her job and she'd go out to her car and she'd have to light up the blowtorch and heat up the locks on the car to get it to open all the time. All the time. It was unbelievable that Plymouth Fury, a car I learned how to drive on actually. So I have a soft spot in my heart for it. It's just absolutely ridiculous shit. I just can't believe that they built those cars so crappy back then, but they did. The thing just rattled and vibrated going down the highway. Anyway, oh my God. There were good things about it too. But here's the other thing that's not being said. Trump's actually making Canada's argument for him. Levin's making Canada's argument for him. For Canada. They're making the Canadian argument because, at the heart of all of this, and I even heard it over on Rebel News today as they were spewing their pro-American rhetoric and criticizing anybody that dare defend Canada in any way on the tariffs, including Mark Carney and especially Doug Ford, whatever, and any of the premiers like Wab Kinew or David Eby or whatever. Oh, because they're just so partisan. And so pro-American, I just had to kind of like, okay, it's just so obvious. Anyway, Levin is actually making Canada's argument because at the heart of this, mentioned today on these other streams, the dairy industry and quotas and like production quotas, supply management, which, by the way, that's not a tariff. But the tariffs on American dairy coming into Canada, they're substantial. And there isn't really much dairy that goes back and forth across the border at all between Canada and the United States because Canada has decided to, and I've in the past come out and said we should do away with the dairy tariffs. I've taken that position in the past because I'm very much a free trader. But at the same time, Canada is a sovereign country, and we as a country should have the right to have a carve out, to select an industry that we choose to protect in a targeted way, not imposing broad tariffs across the entire economy or across all the imports coming in from the United States. But we have tariffs in place in the dairy industry, and we as a country, and even as separate provinces, should have the latitude and the right to do that if we choose. It's like if you own a car, right, and you don't want to sell it to somebody, you shouldn't be forced to sell it. But that's not the position Trump is taking. He's like, we want you to buy our milk. And we're like, no, thanks. We don't want to buy any. Thank you. And we don't want to really send any to you either. We just don't want to trade. No, you have to. No, we don't want to. We don't want to play in that sandbox. You got to play with me in my sandbox. We don't want to. This over here, we're just going to leave that on the shelf. Thanks. No, you have to. See, this is the thing. You must sell me your car, and you must buy mine. I don't want to. Well, okay. You can do that, I guess. But see, we're not dumping. We're not dumping massive amounts of milk into the U.S. And it's the dairy quotas dairy tariffs that really have been one of the catalysts for a lot of this, because there's a big agricultural lobby. Milk, I believe beef, just all agricultural products, poultry. That's another big one. Gee, I wonder what's going on with that ostrich farm. God, I'm sure that has nothing to do with any of this. But Levin and even Trump himself, they're making Canada's argument in the end, because that's what's going to be discussed behind closed doors. Is especially the agricultural tariffs, because big agri business in the United States, big U.S. agricultural corporations want access to the Canadian market, and that will, very likely drive small family farms out of business. So again, what you're hearing out of that ostrich farm, it's not really honest. So what Levin is saying is the United States has been justified in using tariffs in targeted ways over time. Well, that's what Canada's doing. We're saying the government is saying, not me, the government is saying that in certain areas like dairy, agriculture, our farmers want support from the government. We have certain programs in place, crop insurance, a lot of other programs, subsidy programs for farmers. If you have open free trade, those programs go out the window unless you negotiate something like, loan programs for farmers, crop insurance for farmers in case they're hit by drought. How much support are you allowed to give to a farmer if they're under? What if we go back to the Dust Bowl type days that they had back, during the Depression in Western Canada, and Western Canada farmers need a helping hand again? And it was the federal government in Canada that came to their aid and prevented a lot of them from going under, bankrupt. Well, if you have a complete free trade agreement in place, then they'll go to the World Trade Organization, which Levin cited, and would say, that's not fair. Our farmers, we don't provide that kind of subsidy to them. So the Canadian government isn't allowed to provide those kinds of social safety nets for Canadian farmers either. That's an unfair trade practice, and therefore, no. Canada's saying no. Food sovereignty, our food security is more important. We want to make sure that our Canadian farmers are able to make a living and make a living wage from the work that they're doing. And so we have quotas on supply to limit the amount of supply into the market, to prevent even domestic dumping within our own market, which would drive the price of food certain food down to a point where it would be impossible for some smaller farm operations to make a living. So we have targeted tariffs saying, no, we have high tariffs on dairy to prevent big U.S. dairy operations, which pump their cows full of growth hormones, which we don't do here in Canada, to then flood the Canadian market with U.S. milk and U.S. dairy products. I understand. It's about tariff and non-tariff barriers and health concerns, food quality issues. If Canada is facing some sort of a crisis with the United States, would our food security be threatened? Are we able to feed ourselves? Any nation that wants to be a sovereign nation, at the very least, should be able to feed itself, not be reliant on other countries for food. Look at what's going on in Gaza. They can't feed themselves. They need all the food brought in. Do you want to be in that position? No, you want farmers who can feed the country. You need to be able to feed yourself. That's a national security concern. Steel can also be a security concern if you look at it from the perspective of, do we have enough steel to build a ship or a bomb? There's that too. But first and foremost, you need to be able to feed your people. And all these people out there, like, the government's trying to starve us. They're going to shut down they're trying to put all the small farmers out of business. Well, there might be a global movement in that direction to some degree. That's entirely possible, but these trade policies are quite the opposite of that. It's about making sure that we do have food production, clean food, enough food to feed everyone. That's why, even though, prices are up, but when I go to the grocery store, in spite of what Pierre Poilievre said today, really, when you compare it, what goes on here to the rest of the world, we do have abundance. We're still one of the richest countries in the world. We have social safety nets here that they don't have in the United States. Food, you can feed yourself for, a lot less here than you can in a lot of other places around the world. So it's targeted tariffs. You can argue against them. You can argue against, the big dairy cartel and that kind of rhetoric, and that's fine. You can have that talk, but when Levin is sitting there justifying tonight the use of targeted tariffs to achieve specific goals, that's the Canadian argument. So I'm sure Mark Carney is thanking Mark Levin tonight as they prepare for, maybe I would say, the inevitable return to the bargaining table, because what's going on right now is a lot of posturing on both sides, mostly on Donald Trump's side, throwing a little temper tantrum. He was just looking for an excuse to do it, to try to apply more pressure, because he's actually bargaining, I think, from a position of less strength than he wants to let on, and a lot less strength than these pro-American streamers on the Canadian side would have you believe too. They've been given talking points, and they're all echoing each other. It's effective. They keep on repeating the same material over and over again. But I'll tell you this, man, like, I'm cutting a lot of people a lot of slack these days because it is such a challenging time. And whether I'm in their political camp or not, all I can say is I love my country. And so if somebody's going to stand up and try to do something to defend this place against Godzilla, go ahead. I'm cool with it. Do whatever you think you got to do. If you've been elected, you've got a mandate, and what you're doing is done in good faith, and you're trying to help people out. All right. I'm not going to be too critical of it, because who the hell knows what Trump is going to do? Who the hell knows what we're supposed to do to react to any of what he does, because he's just completely unpredictable. He's explosive, and it's weird. I'll be back.
Greetings, brave mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
Bottom of the second. Still no score. I'm not watching the game, but I'm watching the score. Here's the Levin post. I'm not going to talk much more about this at all. We're moving on. I'll just show you over on Truth Social in the Trump feed. This is how I came up with the stuff from Levin tonight. Donald J. Trump reposting the thing from Levin. Tariffs are used by presidents of every party in every period of American history. Mark Levin, Fox News, gives his take on President Donald Trump's tariff policy on life, liberty, and Levin. And Trump is like, yeah, right on, Mark. Thanks for defending me. Trump's embarrassed. He just got called out. That's why he's upset. Because Doug Ford told the truth. Scored some points and he didn't even have to spend all $75 million on the ad campaign, because with Trump chiming in, throwing his little temper tantrum on the tariffs, it generated all kinds of additional attention. It's like the Streisand effect, right? If you didn't know about the tariffs or Barbara Streisand's house before, you know about it now. And the beat goes on. Hurricane Melissa. There's another big story. Extremely dangerous, making landfall in Jamaica, Category 5. Let's tune in for just a moment. Hope everybody down there is okay. Beautiful country, Jamaica. Here we go.
Tonight with George Solis live in Kingston, Jamaica. George, the storm is moving out, but you are still experiencing those strong winds.
Tom, the winds are still whipping, and they're expected to continue through tonight. You can see just how high some of the surf is getting here. Roads still in the area are going to be impassable. Debris is littering a lot of the roadway, and the damage assessment is only just beginning.
Tonight, a devastating direct hit. Melissa slamming into Jamaica as a catastrophic Category 5 hurricane, pummeling the island with 185-mile-an-hour winds and torrential rain. The monster storm unleashing raging floodwaters and life-threatening storm surge, tearing roofs from homes and knocking out power for hundreds of thousands. This was the terrifying scene inside a hospital as Melissa ripped through. Tonight, officials cautioning people to avoid flooded areas where crocodiles may lurk.
Kingston may have been spared the worst of Melissa, but we are still experiencing those strong tropical force storm winds.
Tom just spoke with the Jamaican Prime Minister.
How is it right now in Jamaica?
Jamaica has sustained a major impact. The corridor of damage is significant. We have lost hospitals. Certainly, our road infrastructure would have been damaged.
Give us an update on the status of search and rescue operations. Have those started, or is it still too dangerous?
Still too dangerous to do search and rescue.
Before Melissa's historic landfall, officials had this dire final warning.
Don't bet against Melissa. It is a bet we can't win.
Melissa roared ashore midday in New Hope on the southwestern coast before slicing across the island to the resorts of Montego Bay.
Unfortunately, it's here.
It's here.
Wind has been pretty gnarly this morning.
Officials say some 25,000 tourists are stranded.
We were advised to put one of our mattresses on the window and barricade it with the tables that we have in the room.
People staying at this Montego Bay hotel were evacuated to the ballroom, where they rode out the storm, huddled together on the floor.
Yeah, the beach is just devastated.
Christina and Tony Malscioti were in Negril, celebrating their 10th anniversary. Like many tourists, they scrambled to try and get out before airports closed, but their flight was canceled, leaving them stranded.
It was horrific. It was absolutely terrifying. And I think it was more for the fear of not knowing. I've broken down several times just crying. I don't want to end my life here.
Melissa tying the record for the strongest Atlantic storm to ever make landfall. Wow. This was the reaction from our meteorologist at NBC6 in Miami, getting an update on the storm's unbelievable strength live on air.
Oh, my Jesus Christ.
The storm so dangerous, a Hurricane Hunter flight gathering data had to turn back for the second day in a row. Evacuations are now underway in Cuba, which is bracing for impact next. While here in Jamaica, it could take weeks to fully assess the full scope of Melissa's devastation.
George Solis joins us from Kingston tonight. George, we can see that storm surge there rising behind you. The Prime Minister told me it's still too dangerous to send search and rescue operations out. Have they given any indication when they may be able to get aid in and rescue some of those people?
Yeah, Tom, Jamaican officials saying they want to assess the nation's airports as soon as they are able to. That includes the one here in Kingston and Montego Bay, so that they are able to get some of those relief flights in to get help to those parts of the country that are going to need it most. Tom?
Okay. Well, one moment. Okay, took that down. We've got other stuff to talk about tonight. Let me take a little break, come back. I'll check the score. We'll update you on the other side.
Maverick News isn't just a news outlet, it's a community of truth seekers. Your donation at freedomreporters.com fuels our mission to report the stories that mainstream media won't touch. Thank you, Maverick family.
Oh, uh-oh. The Dodgers have one up on the scoreboard. It's the end of the second. So the Jays have their work cut out for them, coming from behind. Now, this story here, this one, hits close to home for me, as many of you know. News conference held today in Ottawa. The Euthanasia Prevention Coalition. They do these news conferences for different groups in Ottawa, and they held this one today in support of the passage of Bill C-218. It's a private member's bill that would block the expansion of medical assistance in dying, or the M.A.I.D program, to people suffering solely from mental illness. It's an independent bill. Well, it's been introduced, I guess, by conservative MP, Tamara Jansen. It was introduced earlier this year, and we have, speaking with media at this news conference, the president of the coalition, Gordon Friesen, and its executive director, Alex Schadenberg. And there's also a family physician involved here as well, Paul Saba, and a combat veteran, Kelsey Sharon. I'm going to let a little bit of this roll because I know it's also a major concern for a lot of you. And this is a news conference that really didn't get much attention today. But the expansion of the M.A.I.D program is happening. And as you know, the numbers are climbing, and the number of people who are being told they have an option to end their life with medical assistance.
Coalition. Today we are holding a press conference in support of Bill 218,
advanced by member Tamara Jansen to reverse permission of euthanasia for mental illness alone, now set to begin in 2027. Our takeaway message is this: no euthanasia for mental illness. The M.A.I.D policy Canadians have received is not at all as promised. M.A.I.D was only to be for people who are dying, only for adults, and only for people who are able to truly choose. Unfortunately, all of those promises have been broken. Bill C-7, for example, did away with reasonably foreseeable death. But most important is the expectation of real personal choice. That is what fuels support for M.A.I.D. Not that people believe that some patients should die, but that they might perhaps themselves make free, informed, competent, and adult choices. Obviously, however, euthanasia for the mentally ill does not fit that description, for the symptoms of mental illness often make that sort of choice impossible. Indeed, it was long assumed that all M.A.I.D patients would be carefully examined to rule out the influence of psychiatric disorder. Unfortunately, though, such hopes ignore the perverse reality of presenting death as medical care. The capacity we demand for medical consent is a much lower bar, and that is because medical treatment is understood to be a good and even essential benefit, so that gaining patient consent should be as easy as possible. For the mentally ill, this means that a person might be declared legally incompetent even to spend their own money, but still be considered capable of consenting to a doctor's proposition of medical homicide. Please notice that I very deliberately say consenting to a doctor's proposition of medical homicide. For although ordinary people may still mistakenly believe that patients must themselves spontaneously request euthanasia, that is not how medicine works. It is the doctor who informs patients of available options and then steers them towards whichever one he or she believes to be best. Candidly speaking, it is this aggressive marketing of death as medical treatment which has turned a few hundred expected M.A.I.D cases into over 16,000 in 2024 alone. And it also explains recent stories of people in acute psychiatric distress desperately seeking institutional help, who are then professionally informed of their eligibility to be killed in that place by doctors. Clearly, all of this is disastrous for the security of those persons afflicted with mental illness. But from a wider perspective, it also destroys all notion of M.A.I.D as an authentic patient choice. Plainly, the precedent of medical homicide for mental illness opens a crucial gateway to other situations of questionable choice. Now on the drawing board, for example, we find the projected euthanasia of children from 12 years onward, and of infants up to 12 years, in addition to demented seniors whose former selves had made advance requests. And behind these, again, we have other cohorts of persons who are no longer or have never been capable of consent. Any weakening of the competent choice requirement places all of these at deadly risk. The only way to prevent such appalling outcomes is to definitely close that pathway now. So, for the sake of the mentally ill and for that of larger society, let us say together, no euthanasia for mental illness. Join us in supporting Bill 218 for that purpose. Maintenant, j'aimerais m'adresser directement aux députés québécois et québécoises. En 2021, j'ai eu l'honneur de participer aux consultations de la Commission spéciale sur l'évolution de la loi concernant les soins de fin de vie. L'une des conclusions principales de cet exercice se lit ainsi. La Commission recommande de ne pas élargir l'accès à l'aide médicale à mourir aux personnes dont le seul problème médical est un trouble mental. En conséquence, l'article 26 du loi modifié stipule un trouble mental ne peut pas être une maladie pour laquelle une personne peut formuler une demande.
Okay, let me get back to English for you. Here we go.
Well aware when Bill C-7 passed in March of 2021, that included approval for M.A.I.D for mental illness alone as a sole criteria, but has been delayed now, and it will be delayed at this moment until March of 2027 as of the decision of the previous Parliament. The problem with this is, of course, is that March of 2027, when it comes, this will be allowed, and this should never even be considered. And I'll give you several reasons for this right off the bat. First of all, I am opposed to killing people, but even off the very basic concept of M.A.I.D for mental illness, that undermines the whole concept of whether someone can properly consent, whether they're truly consenting, whether they are of their right mind, whether there's alternatives for them. For instance, when we amended the law in 2021 to allow people who were not terminally ill, people who did not have a grievous and irremediable medical, when they did not have to have a terminal condition, what was remaining is that they had to have a grievous and irremediable medical condition. So then the assumption is that somebody who has mental health problems actually has got an irremediable medical condition. And psychiatrists are saying that's really not known. We can't predict that. Now, just so you know, this Bill C-218 only affects this section of the law. It would only prevent euthanasia for mental illness alone. One other thing, though, when you look at this, is when we found out about Tamara Jansen's bill, we put out information to people who were who supported our work. We got a series of letters from a bunch of our supporters talking about their own times when they were going through significant mental illness, and are so happy that M.A.I.D for mental illness was not available to them at that time. I got one letter from a woman named Andrea, and I think this letter was very important because she clearly would have qualified for M.A.I.D based on somebody who might say she would have an irremediable medical condition, which in fact was not irremediable. And she talked about that the fact that when she was younger, so she says twice in 2011, she had attempted suicide, and she was put in a psychiatric place for treatment, and then 3 more times, and then over 14 months between 2015 and 16, once again she was receiving psychiatric care for her deep mental health issues. In her case, this was continuous. She talks about the fact that they said that it did not seem that she was reacting to treatment. So the whole concept of irremediability for someone who actually believes that's a criteria for M.A.I.D for mental illness, she says she would have probably then qualified without a problem. The important thing is, over the years, her life has changed. And she's writing here, I'm well now. She said in here, this is a couple months ago she sent this to me. She said she had just gotten married. She is having her first child. Her life has changed. She said she could never have predicted that in 2015 or 2016 or 2011 when she was receiving psychiatric care and it seemed that she was resistant to treatment, that she would be healthy. And she's healthy today. The point of it is that if it had been available then, she would have wanted it. As she says, I would have wanted it. I would have been dead. I would have never recovered. This is the problem. You can't allow M.A.I.D in these conditions. I don't believe you should allow M.A.I.D for any conditions, but this is very particular. It clearly undermines the concept of the freedom of choice, autonomy, and one's ability to consent. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Alex.
Okay. Obviously a very sensitive, controversial program, liberal government. I understand compassion. I also understand insanity. I've got more, so stay with me.
Greetings, brave mavericks. Our quest for truth continues. We go beyond fake news. Together we expose propaganda. Together we pull others out of rabbit holes. We are maverick thinkers. We are all unique individuals individuals, defenders of individual rights and freedoms, credible, trusted, grounded in reality. Maverick News, Maverick News. Defending free speech, free speech. Donate at freedomreporters.com. Do it now. Tomorrow may be too late. Maverick News. The world is watching.
So this is breaking just within the last hour or two. U.S. Senate has approved a measure that would terminate Trump's tariffs on Brazilian imports, including coffee, beef, and other products. There was a rare bipartisan show of support as opposition mounted against Trump's trade war, especially with Brazil. The legislation passed in a 52-48 vote with 5 Republicans, Senators Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, Susan Collins of Maine, Rand Paul of Kentucky, Tom Tillis of North Carolina, and Republican leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, joining all Democrats in favor. So this takes place on day 28 of the federal government shutdown, with both sides at loggerheads over spending legislation. The resolution, which came from Senator Tim Kaine, would overturn the national emergency that Trump has declared to justify the levies, and it's all but certain to stall in the U.S. House, where the Republican-controlled chamber acted to preemptively shut down any attempt to block the president's tariffs. So it's unlikely that this event, the measure, were to reach the president's desk. It would meet Trump's veto. So sort of symbolic tonight, I guess. Not likely to really result in anything substantive. There is, however, this tonight as well. On that same front, we're seeing Brazilian President Lula da Silva saying negotiations with the United States are not going to move forward if Marco Rubio is part of the team, with President Silva saying that Rubio opposes Brazil's allies, Cuba, Argentina, and Venezuela. Here's the clip. Like I said, Trump's declared a trade war on all of the U.S. allies.
Todo mundo que leu aquela carta sabia que a informação.
He says everyone who read that letter
que leu aquela carta sabia que
knew that the information was there.
Informações que estavam lá
about Brazil, they were
sobre
wrong.
o Brasil estavam equivocadas. Por isso é que eu
That's why I told President
disse para o
Trump
presidente Trump no telefonema que era preciso colocar gente que gostasse do Brasil
people who like Brazil to negotiate.
para negociar. Eu sou presidente de muita experiência. Parece que não, mas eu tenho muita experiência. E você só manda para negociar quem você quer que seja contra, se você é contra, ou você quer que vá negociar de verdade, se você quer um acordo. Se você é favorável ao acordo e coloca alguém com má vontade na mesa de negociação, não tem acordo.
No agreement. So he's laying it on the line. And I think Rubio is actually one of the, even though in public he keeps his mouth shut and you can tell he's kind of scared, he is, I think, one of the guys who has said to Trump, I know you really want the oil in Venezuela, but you can't do it that way. It's got to be about the drugs. Otherwise, you just don't have a good public narrative. And the people won't support you. And that's why you're getting what you're getting. In Canada, also a country under attack from Trump, where separatists have a lot of U.S. support, including monetary support. That's fact. Don't believe me? I've got the audio video evidence. There's a clip still on our YouTube channel. If you haven't listened to it, you should go find it. If you want, you just let me know. I'll dredge it up and we'll run it another night. millions of dollars being directed at the separatist movement out in Alberta from the U.S. side. But that's okay. Sort of, because there's also a big pro-Canadian movement underway. The Forever Canadian petition has surpassed its goal. People who want Alberta to stay in Canada has collected 456,000 signatures, dwarfing the weekend rally that we saw on the pro-separatist side. So for anybody that wants Canada to stay together the way it is, this is, I think, something that will bolster their spirits.
Friends, what a morning. What a day.
This is Thomas Lukazik. He's the petition organizer for the Forever Canadian movement.
I never thought we would get to this point. But there were so many of them telling us it can't be done. And because of you, because of your effort, because of everything that you have been doing every day, collecting signatures in the rain, in southern Alberta, in snow, in variety of places, you have achieved what all of us were hoping for. And friends, not only did we meet the required target of 300,000 signatures, but we have actually just blown past that. And we are now at, are you ready? Yes! 456,365. My friends, in a short period of time, 456,365,000 Albertans have decided that our future, Alberta's future, lies in Canada. 456,365,000 Albertans have said that they don't want anything to do with separatism. And they are asking our Premier to do the right thing. Friends, when this started, my goal was to reach the required number of signatures, but I never imagined that this will turn into a movement. You have built a Forever Canadian community in Alberta that is not a partisan community, but actually it shows hope. It shows that politics can be done in a positive way. It shows that we can actually vote for something, not against something. And this Forever Canadian movement has given back us and given you back your voice. So today we will be turning over these boxes from all over Alberta. And by the way, somebody just handed in 23 more signatures, so add that to it, to our Chief Electoral Commissioner. Our Chief Electoral Commissioner will do what he has to do. He will tabulate this petition and he will finally certify it and turn it to the Alberta Legislature. Friends, when we were working so hard, we knew that vast majority of Albertans want to remain Canadian. Hence, we are not asking for a referendum. We already know that we are Canadian and we will always be Canadian. We are asking the Premier to do the right thing and ask Alberta MLAs to vote on this issue and put separatism to bed once and for all. There are other important issues for our government to focus on, and this should not be a distraction from important government work. So friends, what a way to make a history. What a way to send a message to our provincial government, to the rest of Canada, letting other Canadians know that Albertans are not outliers. We are as proud of being Canadian as any other Canadian from sea to sea to sea. And this is also a resounding message to the rest of the world. Alberta is a place where you can safely invest. Alberta is a place where you can move to, and Alberta is a place where you can raise your family, because we're not going anywhere outside of Canada. We are at home, that's right. So thank you again. Thank you to every single one of you for the hard work that you have put in. Thank you to all the organizers. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I started a little snowball. You made it into an avalanche. And I thank you for that. Every single one of you have been working so hard. And as I was traveling over 7,000 kilometers in this 33-year-old bus, the stories were compelling. There was a lot of laughing and a lot of crying. People were signing this petition for very personal reasons. And people could not imagine not being Canadian. And you have those stories, treasure those stories. One day I hope we will be able to share those stories with the rest of Canada. But for now, let's celebrate this event. Let's bring those boxes to the Chief Electoral Commissioner, and let's have him counted, and let's put separatism once and for all to bed. Thank you.
All right, so there you have that. But I'll tell you, the fight ain't over, because the other side ain't giving up. 2-1. That's the score. Toronto out ahead. Top of the fourth. Back to the economy as we begin to close out tonight's program. Just a reminder for Donald Trump, as I reminisce about that 1977 Plymouth Fury that I learned how to drive on, the car that required a blowtorch to open the doors, made in Detroit, actually, that car. I believe, I think it was assembled in 77 in Detroit. Yeah, I think it was the Lynch Road assembly plant. But, as time progressed, and it didn't take much time after that, because those cars did have serious problems, Chrysler was beginning to learn, and Lee Iacocca, who was the executive who came from Ford to Chrysler, and it was his job to turn the company around, save Chrysler. There were two vehicles at that time that saved Chrysler Corporation from bankruptcy. There was the K car. I owned a couple of those over the years, various incarnations of it. There was the K car. I never owned an actual K car. I owned a Dodge Dynasty based on that extended chassis. I had a Dodge Daytona and a Chrysler Laser. Those were all based on the same K car platform. They looked like a sporty car, but they were really a K car underneath. Family car. But there was another vehicle that really saved the company, and it was assembled in Canada, in Windsor. This is a video from Chrysler about the minivan, known at the time when it first came out as the Magic Wagon, a Lee Iacocca Chrysler product. But this is something he actually had envisioned originally for Ford, but the company never built it. And then he took the idea when he left Ford to come over to Chrysler as the CEO of the company, and used it to save Chrysler. Here's just a little bit of history, very short video from Chrysler Corporation about the Magic Wagon.
When that first minivan rolled out to applause in 1983, it revealed to the world what a wave of Chrysler Group engineering and design once conjured. It was something, well, magical.
A magic wagon that carries 2 passengers and a big load, or 5 passengers and a smaller load.
Bill Moisiuk and Joe Charbonneau worked at the Windsor, Ontario assembly plant where minivans have been built over the past 30 years. They remember hearing about that unnamed new product they would soon be building.
We didn't know exactly what to expect. Nobody knew what a minivan was, and but we had a lot of trust.
When we started building it and started looking at it, and they were giving out vans for people to test and try, our area manager would let us try it, and then we realized at that time this was going to be a hot seller. We knew that. I knew that anyway. That was it was about 2 months after we were building them. I knew this was a killer.
It was. The minivan all but replaced the venerable station wagon as the family hauler of choice for one simple reason.
We're jumping ahead.
Hey, I got it! Leapfrog!
Yes, Chrysler Group minivans leapfrogged ahead of the competition with a full load of innovations.
We innovated when we invented the minivan 30 years ago, and we've continued to innovate throughout the minivan's lifespan. And one of the greatest innovations that still exist in the minivan segment is that of stow and go. And at our Chrysler and Dodge minivans are the only vans in the market that can fold flat quite easily with the flip of a wrist, not only your second row, but also the third row in the minivan. So the great thing about our minivans today, when you think about them, is they can comfortably transport 7 passengers. They can easily be converted into a cargo van with the stow and go and have a flat floor. They get great fuel economy, and it's a tremendous amount of value from what you pay for.
Since 1983, more than 13 million Chrysler and Dodge brand minivans have been sold. That's tops of the market. That's more than twice as many as any other automaker over the past 30 years.
Indeed, after 30 years, the market is still strong for Chrysler Group minivans, not only because of their attractive design and innovative features, but because they're built well.
You know, at Windsor Assembly Plant, we take pride of our quality. We build a very good quality car, and it's reflected. You know, this year we won for J.D. Power on our Town and Country, so we went up against a lot of competitors, and we're able to beat them.
As Chrysler continues to look for ways to stay on top in the segment it invented, there's no doubt there will always be demand for its minivans.
So long as there's going to be families in the future, which I'm pretty confident there's going to be, I think there's going to be a demand for the minivan.
I'm Ed Garston reporting for Chrysler Digital Media.
Little blast from the past there. And yeah, the quality really did improve immensely from like 77 by the time they got to 83 and to those products, the K car, the minivan. And they still make, you know, the Pacifica, which is a version of that today. So that was a joint effort cross border, and it was the Windsor Assembly Plant that produced those magic wagons that was one of the key vehicles in bringing Chrysler back from the brink of death. You might take note, Donald Trump, we work with you, not against you. Let's be friends. And as much as I had issues with that 1977 Plymouth Fury, I still love that car because I learned how to drive on it. And that's why tonight, if I can find it, there it is. I'm going to leave you with this song from Maverick and the News Brothers, Fury Road.
I was just a kid, 16 and wild. Dad tossed me the keys to go drive a while. As she sat gleaming blue under the sun, a 7.7 Fury built to run. 360 under the hood, 4 barrels screaming. Luxury and muscle like a dream I was dreaming. Let the seat smooth, dash lit up bright. When I hit that pedal, she took off in flight. Felt that Mopar magic deep in my soul. That Fury was more than just in control. On the Fury road, I found my way. Luxury and power burning through the day. The engines roar, the open sky. I learned to drive, I learned to fly. That blue Plymouth, fast than me. Fury in my heart, living the dream. Cruising down the street, hips turning around. People knew that sound, it shook the ground.
chrome and steel, the power in my hands, that Mopar magic no one understands. She had a glide so smooth, but the punch was raw. Every mile in that Fury left me in awe. From red lights to highways, I made her run. Every time I on the wheel, I was the only one. With a deep blue shine and the power she gave, in that Plymouth Fury, I felt brave. On the Fury Road, I found my way. Luxury and power burning through the day. The engines roar, the open sky. I learned to drive, I learned to fly. That blue Plymouth, fast and neat. Fury in my heart, living the dream. From red lights to highways, pure steel pride. Taught me how to roll, taught me how to ride. With every turn, with every mile, that Fury gave me my own style. Now every road takes me back in time to the day I felt that engine's prime. On the Fury Road, I found my way. Luxury and power burning through the day. The engines roar, the open sky. I learned to drive, I learned to fly. That blue Plymouth, fast and neat. Fury in my heart, living the dream. Now I ride, but nothing feels the same. Without that Fury, it's just a game. She was my first, my Mopar queen. Still hear her roar in my gasoline dream. And that 7.7 Plymouth will always be the ride that set me free.
See you tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern. On the flip side, Jays are still winning.
This has been a Maverick Multimedia production.